Director of National Intelligence James Clapper calling President-elect Donald Trump last night to express his dismay at leaks to the media and the damage that it did to national security. Director James Clapper stated that he does not believe the leaks are coming from the intelligence community. President-elect Trump tweeted about his fiery news conference last night. Here's what he said. "We had a great news conference at Trump Tower today. A couple of fake news organizations were there, but the people truly get what's going on." We want to bring in Buck Sexton, former CIA officer. Good to see you, Buck. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So much to talk about from that news conference yesterday. But first, what's your take on these leaks?
Well, it's really important to differentiate between whether the leaks are coming from inside the community or from senators, members of Capitol Hill, people that have access to the information who have a long tradition of these kinds of partisan leaks in order to undermine the other side, the incoming president in this case. It's really damaging, though. Every president creates his own or her own relationship with the president early on. They get into a rhythm with the intelligence community, and it is based on a degree of trust and getting to know how the different agencies function, especially for Donald Trump, who doesn't have a background in this, has never worked with these sorts of government agencies. So these leaks coming out create the perception, at least, that there's a partisan effort underway to undermine the president from not even day one, before day one. And that's very destructive because the president needs to be able to trust the information coming out of his executive branch agencies. It's national security depends on it.
Dagan.
BuzzFeed essentially publishing this dossier when the allegations were unsubstantiated. How much does that hurt the country's view of the intelligence community, but also the fact that are we really ever going to get to the bottom of what Russia is up to?
Well, I think it's essential to make sure that we're all on the same page, and this is, I think, what DNI Clapper was trying to do, that this wasn't an intelligence community document. So they were in no way vouching for the veracity of what was contained in this. And I think most of us read it. I don't know if all of you read the whole thing. You read this and you realize this is just nonsense. This is rumor mongering. But it still was, it can be, and it's not clear if it was necessarily or not. I know there's still some debate as to whether the information was a part of an intel briefing. They can give any information they want if they think it may be valuable context. They can give a news article. They can give anything. So the information may have been there just to say, look, this is out there. The Russians have a long-standing history stretching all the way back to KGB days of putting out disinformatia, so that wouldn't be strange at all, and also compromising information or compromise something that they have honed as a skill. So it may have just been, be aware this is out there, but they're not saying this is a real thing, you need to be worried about this. And that's how the media was reporting it. That's what BuzzFeed was doing.
And CNN, too.
And CNN saying it was included in the reporting was a way of disingenuously making it sound like it was real intel community product, which it absolutely was not.
Wall Street Journal had it, a lot of news organizations had it, unverified, didn't publish it, period.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it's really important. Everybody's saying this is the post-trust era, post-truth era. You don't know, nobody knows what to believe anymore. People are criticizing Trump supporters, saying they don't act on facts. And now we've got things like this out there, and people don't know what to believe. The toothpaste out of the tube, so many people are out there saying Trump did this, it's so gross, it's a shame. How do we help people navigate truth from fiction?
Well, I think for one, you have to hold news organizations and individuals who work for them accountable for making really horrific.
That's a responsibility.
Obviously, I mean, this is part of the Trump scare or the Trump derangement syndrome that's taken over in some media organizations where it really is believed, I think, that anything that they can do to hobble the presidency is morally justified. It sort of elevates it even beyond journalistic ethics. So I think that's a big part of it. You look at this, there were organizations that had it and they didn't go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is maybe a related symptom to Trump derangement syndrome, but this phenomenon where politicians on the left suddenly in love with the U.S. intelligence community, forgetting the last decade and not wanting them questioned at all. Chuck Schumer actually suggesting that they will retaliate against the president-elect because he's criticizing them. Is that possible? Will we actually see an intelligence community trying to get back at Mr. Trump? And if so, how do you reform that?
Well, first, as somebody who worked for the CIA during the Bush administration, let me tell you that politicians don't always love the intel community, and there can be a lot of acrimonious back and forth, obviously. As to whether there will be retribution from inside the IC, as people widely term it, that can be up to the individual. I mean, that's where you get some of the very prominent leaks, which, by the way, did happen, as you well know, as all you know, under the Bush administration, specifically to hurt U.S. national security and to hurt the Bush administration, to make it look bad. You didn't have that really the same way under the Obama administration. There were fewer of those clearly partisan leaks. There were leaks of a sort of different nature. But I don't think that that's something that is helpful for Chuck Schumer to say. I think he knows that, because it makes it seem like these agencies are partisan organisms or partisan organizations, when in reality there might be some individuals who act that way. But overall, the prevailing ethos is we're just trying to provide the best information. These are mostly civil servants showing up day in and day out, doing the best job they can with what they have.
What's your take on the confirmations hearing so far? I mean, obviously we got the confirmation hearing for CIA Director nominee Mike Pompeo. That's been rescheduled for today. He wants to roll back the Iran nuclear deal. But what kind of expectation do you have here? Any fireworks is what you're expecting? Walk us through what you've seen so far and what to expect from Pompeo.
Well, Tillerson had a bit of a rough time yesterday. We saw some exchanges, including with Marco Rubio.
Certainly Marco Rubio, yeah.
Yeah, that were a bit tense, and I think the highlighting of Russia in general as this specter, as this boogeyman now, the greatest geopolitical threat we face, which is very new, of course, and it has to coincide with Hillary Clinton losing the election. But there are some very real questions about how Tillerson would react to Russia or will deal with Russia in a Secretary of State role. He had a bit of a tough time. I think that's what we've seen in Sessions so far, with Sessions so far, is more or less to be expected. Pompeo, I don't think will have too much trouble. He has a fantastic record of service to his country, first in his class at West Point, Harvard Business School, a private sector guy who also served his country and has credibility because of his Tea Party roots with the right, with conservatism, so I think that will go over well, and shares a lot of the more hawkish tendencies of the Trump administration where necessary. There are some daylight, people say, on Russia. The CIA director is not actually making policy, so as long as this is someone who's competent in the role, who has a resume and a background that will allow them to do this properly, I don't think the Senate will get very far if they try to go after Pompeo and pick him apart. I think he'll have a relatively easy time. Waterboarding, they'll just do some grandstanding on, though, for sure.
Can Marco Rubio stop Tillerson from getting the job?
I don't think so. I think Tillerson probably still gets through, but Rubio was making some very clear points yesterday. I think he was making them in part because he believes it, and in part because he's Marco Rubio, and he wants to make sure that he has his say and puts his imprint on what the administration will do on foreign policy.
He wants to be big Marco, not little Marco.
He definitely doesn't want to be little Marco.
I don't think he laid a glove on him. Tillerson gets through.
Yeah, I think Tillerson gets through, too.
All right, we will leave it there.